everyone, my name is Kathleen Keogh, and for my cultural visit, I explored the Smithsonian's Virtual Latino Center, which discussed the various aspects of Latino culture, specifically their music, their cuisine, holidays, and influential Latinos. So I just decided to focus on this museum specifically because as an ESL teacher, I have many students from Latino countries such as Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Peru. So I really appreciated learning a little bit more about their traditions and their culture. And I also really appreciated the authenticity of the Smithsonian resources. A lot of the videos were in Spanish, and a lot of the documents were bilingual documents. So not only can I use them in my class, but it made the experience a lot more authentic, which I was kind of surprised about. So let's begin. The first thing I'm going to talk about that I learned in my cultural visit is about the influential Latinos. So there were plenty, but I just decided to pick a few. So on the left, you have Ellen Ochoa, who was the first Latina astronaut in space and the first Latina, only the second ever woman to serve as the director of the Johnson Space Center, which is responsible for all the astronaut activities for NASA. So she was an incredibly influential Latina, but also a very influential woman. So on the right, we also have Alida Ortiz Sotomayor. So she was the first woman to obtain a PhD in marine sciences from the University of Puerto Rico in 1976. So she was a very influential Latina again, but also a very influential woman in Puerto Rico. She ended up enacting the first earth sciences curriculum for the public schools of Puerto Rico, which obviously is also a really big deal. So she was very influential. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cuisines that I learned about. So on the left, we have pipián vegetariano, which is a sauce made of shelled pumpkin seeds and simmered vegetables. It derived from Mexico. So this became really popular. And then on the right, we have a dessert called Como la Flor, which is an apple dessert. And when I was reading a little bit more about it, it was kind of interesting to read that a lot of the tidbits were mentioning that people kind of whip this up in their kitchen with ingredients they already have in their pantry or already have in their fridge. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting tidbit to include. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about music. So I knew that accordions were very influential in Latino music, but Latin music, but I hadn't realized how many years accordions go back in music, and how influential it really became and sort of shaped music in Latin American countries. And then on the right, we have bata drums. I watched a really interesting video about three men playing bata drums who explained if you hit a certain side of the bata drum, it makes a really interesting noise, and if you hit this side of it, it makes a different noise. And they were explaining about how the bata drums are played at a lot of ceremonies and religious gatherings. So bata drums are an incredibly influential and important aspect of Latin music. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the holidays that Latinos celebrate. So on the left, we have Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos, which is a day that Latinos sort of celebrate and commemorate the lives of people who have passed on. Instead of sort of grieving in a really like sad and depressing way, people who celebrate Dia de los Muertos sort of celebrate the spirits that are moving on and the lives of the people who have passed. So I was even surprised to see that Smithsonian, the website, provided a Day of the Dead ESL instructor guide, which included bilingual resources and bilingual videos, which I'm sure my students are going to absolutely enjoy. So I'm definitely going to include that in one of my lesson plans for my adult ESL students. And then on the right, we have a picture that represents Hispanic Heritage Month, which is celebrated every September 15th to October 15th. Smithsonian comprised various materials to honor Hispanic Heritage Month, and one of the materials or segments that they produced was a segment called Latinos Talking About Latinos. And it was actually really interesting to hear influential Latinos talking about other influential Latinos. Some of the Latinos they discussed were John Quinones, who is a journalist in America, and then also Judith Baca, who is a really influential and leading muralist in America. So that was a super interesting segment. I definitely recommend that if you have the time to go and look at that. So that was a lot of the information I learned. I tried to keep it concise for the video, but I hope you guys learned something as well, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.